What's up, everyone? It's Alex Ragir, co-founder of Storyhunter. I'm on my way to downtown Manhattan, where I'm going to speak with Erica Berenstein, the head of video for BITV, the newly launched video arm for Business Insider. Excited to hear what she has to say. Erica, thanks for joining.
Thank you guys for coming down.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about BITV. What are you up to? We're here at the headquarters, Business Insider here in New York.
So we do one, soon to be two, Facebook Watch shows, and then we do various other editorial projects. We do video for Prime, which is behind our paywall.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're building out a video department, business focused, for Business Insider?
Yeah. It's definitely business focused. I think that my only issue with calling it business focused is I think that when people hear business focused, they think very much CNBC or Cheddar or something where you just have like people mostly talking about business. So we try not to have just people talking about business. We try to go to places where things are happening and sort of the bar to what makes a story we would cover is that there's some highly visual aspect to it. So sometimes that's because we find something that looks really cool and we figure out how to turn that into a business story. Sometimes it's that we have a good business story and we figure out how can we find something highly visual that can help us get into this story. But we're really, really cognizant of the fact that we're not a podcast. We are a visual show on a visual medium, and that's the most important part of what we look for in stories.
That's interesting because it's not so common to have a paywall for video. So explain.
Well, the stuff that we put, we're still working on it. It's still very, very much something that we're developing. So we're trying to figure out what kind of video can we put behind the paywall. But I think that a lot of the video that will go behind our paywall is meant to complement the other niche stuff that we have, whether it's about entrepreneurship or finance or sort of areas where you have a highly interested audience. And the big thing that we work really hard on for our paywall is that once someone pays to cross it, we want to make sure they're really happy when they get there. And so a lot of it is not necessarily that you would want to pay for this video. It's that if you are a paying subscriber, we're providing a great video product that is just for you.
So what have you seen over the past, since the past year or so, trends in the digital video space?
I would say I feel like I'm seeing a little bit less text on screen, less stuff that is just clicky grabby and then there's nothing behind it. I think that a lot of places are trying to, everyone sort of was doing thoughtful stuff and then just tried to get a ton of clicks. I mean, I haven't been here for a year, right? So I'm telling you experience based on working at multiple organizations. I'm not talking just about Business Insider. And I think that now in general, whether it's New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Business Insider, I think everyone's trying to make sure that what they're producing delivers on the promise that you get when you see a headline, when you see a great thumbnail and you click on it. You don't want to just get there and watch 3 seconds and be like, this is not what I thought it was going to be, this is not interesting, this is not compelling. It's about more than just pulling people in, it's about getting them to stay there. What
would you say? There's a lot of story hunters and production companies and filmmakers watching this. What types of stories are you looking for?
We started using Storyhunter, do you know how long ago? I don't
remember. Beginning of the year or so, yeah.
If you look at the geographical reach of our show right now, it's mind-blowing. And we have a story coming out from Gaza, we had one last week from Kenya, we've had stuff from India. Before we were using Storyhunter, we had some of that because we would send our crews out to places like that, but it was something that had to be very, take forever to plan, and then we would have to do like 10 stories in one place, and it was a huge lift. And so we would, every once in a while you would see a burst of international stories, and then we would go back to being very US focused, very New York focused. And now it's like the whole world is open to us.
The world is flat.
Yeah. What I really, really love is when, especially if it's someone we've worked with before, so we know that they're going to be able to actually deliver what they say they can deliver, is when people bring story ideas to us that we never would have found. If you're forced to find your stories on Google, which a lot of producers sitting in offices in New York are forced to just Google around for stories, make a couple phone calls here and there. But when we put out our first call for pitches, I'll tell you a little story. We put out our first call for pitches, and I think we put it out in like 5 in the afternoon or something like that. Don't quote me, but sometime in the afternoon. And the next morning, our supervising producer comes in like looking haggard, and I'm like, "Are you okay? What's wrong?" And she's like, "I couldn't sleep last night." And I said, "What? Why? Why couldn't you sleep?" She goes, "There are so many good story pitches. I was going through them all." Now, I had been going on till about midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, and then I had to like cut myself off. She stayed up all night long going through all the pitches, because it was not just that there was material coming in and that there were people all over the world. It's that they had really good ideas that we could not have found on Google. We could not have read about them in other publications. They were actually like original ideas that these people had observed in their daily life because they happen to live in these places.
Yeah.
So the local knowledge that a lot of story hunters have about what's right in front of them, we can't see what's going on in Lithuania. We can't see what's going on in local news coverage in South Korea that is in a different language. So they're able to it's almost as like stringers, sort of, right? Like they bring us ideas that we never could have found otherwise.
Yeah. What do you say to people out there who want to, you know, move up in their careers? What has allowed you to kind of evolve like that?
I mean, this is a stressful industry, right? For multiple reasons that I don't need to go into, we all know. But having good relationships with either the people you're working in an office with, the people you work with remotely, the people who are above and below you, around you. And I read in a cheesy management book that my boss assigned to me a couple months ago. Named, I think it's called The One Thing. And I haven't actually finished it yet, so I don't know how good it is all in all. But the best advice it had was actually marriage advice. And it said the couples that stay together the longest and are happy together, the sort of unifying thing is that one half of the pair, not that we're married, but sorry, I'm going like this. One half of the pair, if you do something that upsets me, rather than immediately getting upset at you, I will, in my mind, give the most generous explanation for why you might have done what you did. Because very often things are a result of a miscommunication.
Yeah.
And I found that that's really helpful, because whether I'm working with a story hunter, or I'm working with Claire, who's behind that camera, or whoever I'm working with, very often if something doesn't work, it's probably partially my fault, probably partially your fault, whatever it is. There are a lot of inputs into that, and the important thing is not what went wrong, it's how do you solve it and how do you move forward without like hating each other.
When you look at kind of hiring strategy, what are the types of things that you really value?
I value people who are very good writers. That's really, really important. I value people who are definitely hard workers and are ambitious, and that, I mean, this is the cheesiest thing ever, but it's like that they're team players, that they know that, you know, sometimes they're going to be working on their own passion project, but they're just as excited to work on a project that they never would have pitched, that never would have interested them, but they jump in and they just go full force on it. You know, like, I don't know, I always, maybe to a fault, any project I work on it like it's a passion project. Even if it's super boring and I hate it, I can't let go of it until it's as good as I would make it if I loved it. And I don't know, in a show like this, you need people like that, because you if it's your story and you need me to just jump in and like help throw your transcripts into the computer, and I don't do a great job to help you, then that really makes your job harder. Whereas if someone's like, oh yeah, I'll help you, Alex, I got that. They go, they come back, they do it, and then they do like the 3 other things that you were about to ask them, but they did it already anyway. Like, that's the kind of people that we're looking for.
Cool. What do you think, like in digital video, that a lot of people are talking about that you should sort of ignore?
It seems less important now to be able to do everything, and a little bit more important to get really good at certain things. Because one thing that's hard is like, if someone's sort of medium at everything, they might be able to help other people with stuff, but I can't say to them like, okay, can you really take ownership of this part of the project and make it really great? Now that's coming from someone who's mediocre at everything and not particularly good at any one thing, because I was a one-woman band, so I had to do everything, right?
Yeah.
But like, I guess I would say writing is probably the place that I focus the most. But like, just be really good at story structure. Whether you're only shooting or only editing or only writing or only whatever, like whether you are the creative lead on a project and you're the one who's structuring the story, or you're the editor and you can say to the producer, hey, what if we put this here instead of here, or like this is missing a line here, there's just like a line about this setup that you need of what the main question is. Anyone who can contribute and help make the storytelling better, that's going to be the same no matter what the medium is.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's sort of something that's intangible. It's kind of, writing is sort of the core of that.
I kind of feel like it's like read Sid Field's screenwriting book, watch a lot of superhero movies. Like, I mean, one of the first courses I took in college was a screenwriting class, and I remember that they were like, by page whatever, like the inciting incident or the point of no return must happen, and by page whatever, you know, the denouement must start. And it's really cheesy, and when you see it in a movie and you can tell that that happened, because it's all crafted, it feels really cheesy. But when you are reporting on real life, and you're trying to not tell the whole story of everything that ever happened in this person's life, but you're trying to tell your slice that's going to be in your project, it can be really hard to take that and turn it into a story with an arc. But if you have that idea of story arc and like you have a character, the character wants something, there are challenges in that character's way, what do they do to overcome them? And your character could be a city, your character could be, it could be a little kid, it could be a dog, it could be an entire group of people, it could be a country, it could be a rainforest. But if you sort of take the approach of structuring your story the right way, or at least you know that and you can help the producer you're working with to figure that out, you're like halfway there.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I was at Bloomberg, I remember an editor told me, get an anecdote to that story. Yeah. So I'm thinking anecdote like some, person crying, that's affected, like that's what I was thinking.
Sorry, I'm not laughing at crying, but yeah, I know.
But
like
someone who's affected or something like that. But actually what he was like, no, tell me the anecdote of the company. Like this company, like the company was crying, and then it overcame its he wanted that, and I was like looking. I'm going to go out on the streets and try to find an anecdote about stock moving.
No, I was just sitting earlier today with a producer, and we were going to go over the outline of this story that he's working on, and he had done a ton of reporting and a ton of research, and he had like all the things we were going to film. Probably a lot of it was Storyhunter, by the way. And so he puts this amazing outline in front of me that has like all these detailed things. I said, close that computer and just tell me, what's the story arc? Who's your main character? What do they want? What are they not getting? What are they doing to get over it? And he looked at me like, what? I'm like, don't tell me about any companies. Don't tell me about any particular thing you're going to film. Just tell me what the story is. And I think that like that's sort of where you need to start before you pitch something. Mm-hmm. Like if you pitch something to me and I call you and I need to ask you what the story is, it means that you probably have something really super visual and cool in there, but you didn't tell me what the story is. Yeah. And like the visual was good enough that even though I can tell you didn't have a story, I'm interested and I want to get a story out of it. But like you should, in my opinion, the top of a pitch should be like, why is this a video, not a podcast? And what's the story? In 2 or 3 sentences max, what's the big idea? So our editor-in-chief, Nick Carlson, he always asks, what's the big idea behind this? Which is basically the why now, or so what, of a story. You can find me a great anecdote or a great individual story, but it's like, is this person one of many? Are they indicative of a trend? Is there some kind of big idea of why you're telling me this particular story or this particular company's story, for example?
Thank you.
Thank you.
You go.
Wait, I almost went too far. Okay, sorry, I'm good.